What's up, everybody? It is Amrinder Singh. So, if you are struggling to understand the Punjabi, so basically you are on wrong path because you are trying to learn a formal Punjabi, which is not gonna help you to understand Punjabi people because we speak colloquially Punjabi, which is different than textbook type Punjabi. All right. So, if you wanna learn a colloquial Punjabi, then make sure to follow this podcast. And another thing, if you want exposure of Punjabi language, I have another Punjabi podcast where I speak only Punjabi. Then you can also follow this podcast. Link is in the description. And another thing I want to say is when you comment on my podcast, especially on Spotify, so I can't reply to you on that platform, but I read your comments. So don't think I'm not replying to you, all right, because I'm not able to. But I read your comments, so I'll try to explain if I thought, okay, I need to explain this comment in my podcast, I will explain, all right? Recently, I've been busy, but when I get time, I try to explain, all right? I'll try to make an episode on those things. So yeah, now let's get started. So today we're going to talk about how to understand Punjabi even without knowing the vocabulary. So it doesn't mean if you don't know Punjabi at all, so you can understand the meaning. I'm not talking about that. Basically, I'm talking about if somebody say a sentence, right? You understand the rest of the word, well, except only one word, maybe a two. And then how you can connect those words so you can understand basically meaning of this sentence even without knowing a one specific word, all right? So you don't need to look at the dictionary. You will just get it from the context. So there's many words in English which I learned just through the context, just understanding the language without even looking at the dictionary. And there are a few examples I'm gonna tell you. So one is, I think, recently, maybe couple of months, I learned this phrase, creating something from the thin air. I'm listening it a lot, not listening, I'm hearing it a lot, mostly on the videos, like when they printed the money, basically by federal bank, and they were saying that the federal bank can create money from the thin air, right? So thin air. So it looks like maybe for some people, for beginner, they can't understand that. And I didn't look at the dictionary. I just got it like from the concept, what they were talking about. And I got it like when they say the Federal Reserve Bank can create a money from a thin air, it means like it's so easy for them to create a money. They can just print the money. It's so easy. When they say they can create something from thin air, it means it's for easy job for them to do. And you also tell me, am I right or I'm wrong? Because I don't checked on the dictionary and I was just listening. I just understand myself, right? That's what it seems to me. That's what makes sense to me. All right. So that's how I learned the vocabulary. And it makes perfect sense for me. It could mean differently. You let me know, but I don't think so. I think that's how it is. All right. So this is how I learned this phrase without looking at the dictionary. So you need a context, the overall context. So how you can understand, all right? So there's also another example of when somebody is shocked, they say, holy shit. I don't need to look at this word like a holy shit on the dictionary. I just learned from the expressions if I'm watching a video, probably even listening, because this thing I listen a lot and that's how I learned, all right? So same thing you can do with Punjabi if you are learning Punjabi. But if you're completely beginner and you don't know anything, it's not going to work. You need to be a little bit like if somebody is saying something, maybe you are getting something, right? If you can understand like some kind of basic things, what they are saying, then this is really good for you to just understand. Because sometimes you just got frustrated because basically you got frustrated because you were trying to focus on every single word, which is wrong way to learn any language, all right? So in this context, I'm going to tell you something about when you are listening something, try to get overall meaning, all right? Don't focus on every single word. If you're listening something And if somebody says something and you say, oh, what does it mean? What did this specific word mean? All right, to stuck there. Because I also do sometimes, even in my own Punjabi, it doesn't mean like I don't know the meaning of the words. Sometimes it could be. Sometimes if you're listening something and somebody says a word, whatever, which just like catch my attention, when I hear this word, I'm paying attention on this word, then I miss the rest of thing. All right. Why? Because I was focusing on that word. So same thing when you're learning Punjabi and you're listening and you focus on one word you don't know and you say, oh, what does it mean? You basically miss the rest of things. So you don't need to do it. Just try to get the overall meaning. All right. So if you look at the basically when you have a conversation in your own language, right? When somebody says to you, you don't basically separate every single word and try to get the meaning. You just get the context. You just know the sound. Okay, this sound, this kind of phrase mean that, right? Even your brain, it doesn't like try to like pay attention on this one. It's just immediately, right? Your brain gets it. Why? Because your brain is ready to get the information, not every single word, like by every single word, right? Because a word, a meaning could have different in different situation. It's all about context. So another situation, if you are trying to maybe improve your vocabulary and you're listening something, maybe a podcast, and you're writing some words down, that's perfectly fine. But you can't do all the time. Maybe you can spend like 10 minutes and you note a couple of words, maybe 7, 8, 10, whatever. After that, if you're not going to use those words, you're going to forget them. So what you can do is you can basically try to make some sentences according to those words. You write them down, all right? So this kind of stuff, you don't need to do all the time, all right? Maybe you spend 10 minutes. Okay, now you're done. You wrote some words and then you can practice on those words later. Now, when you're listening, just listen. Just listen. Try to get the meaning of what they're saying, all right? If somebody is speaking for 1 minute, all right, there are a lot of words you will miss basically, and some words you don't know the meaning. But if you're getting the context, all right, if somebody say 1 minute conversation, whatever, on the video, on the podcast, maybe in front of you, most important thing is message. What's his message? All right, even in one sentence you get the message. That's how it is. All right, right now I'm talking to you guys, all right? Everything I talk to you guys, you don't need to remember that what I'm talking, like every single line. Even I don't remember what I say. If I have to repeat all things, I don't remember at all. I can paraphrase it. Maybe my like a sentence is going a little different, but the meaning would be same. So from this whole conversation, what you can get, there's only 1 or 2 lines. Basically, focus on the context. Don't pay attention on every single word, all right? If you get this message from this, basically a podcast or this episode, that's all about it, all right? Every other things are just a secondary information which you don't need to remember, all right? If you're listening to me and from this podcast, you got it, all right? If you got, okay, what I need to do, I just need to do overall context, all right? I just need to pay attention on overall context, not try to understand every single word, all right? So that's how it is. When you're listening somebody, all right, especially in Punjabi, so your focus is on the message. What's the message? It could be in one line. You're listening from somebody from the 5 minutes, but the message is only one line. What they're trying to do, they're trying to explain things, all right? So that's why when we listen, there's very few sentences which stuck in our mind. Those sentences are key, which is the main sentences, all right? So even if you pay attention on your just regular conversation in your own language, right? So basically you just get the message. If you're listening something in the podcast, all right, just you get the message, like a few sentences. If you are listening to a podcast about like a fitness, you don't you are not gonna remember like a whole conversation for 30 minutes or an hour. You're gonna remember like a few lines, which are those important because you get the message. So same thing. That's what my purpose to tell you. All right. Because many times people make mistakes because they are trying to understand every single word. So when they're listening, sometimes if they pay attention on overall context, they can get more, right? So you can understand more Punjabi or any language you're learning because you're trying to get the message, which is the right way to deal with the language when you're listening, all right? When you are trying to focus on every single word, all right, this is not the right way. So basically you're focused on the words, not on the context, all right? Okay, now I'm gonna give you an example in Punjabi. Okay, if there is a sentence I'm gonna speak, all right? ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਜਨਵਰੀ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਠੰਡ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਾਲਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਟ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ now in this sentence if you can understand most of the part what I said you don't need to pay attention on every single word all right like so okay what do you understand let's say you don't understand one word all right which is a pala so when I said ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਜਨਵਰੀ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਠੰਡ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ right so what does it mean because here in Punjab in January is so cold all right ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਾਲਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ all right now so you understand like ਜਦੋਂ means when ਅਸੀਂ means we all right ਬਾਹਰ mean outside ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ means like when we goes to all right then you don't know pala lagda. What the hell means pala lagda, all right? So what's the next context? Next context is sanu coat pauna penda. Now, what's the mean coat? Coat means could be any kind of like you could say thick suit or jacket kind of thing, all right? It's kind of like a jacket basically. So we just say coat, all right? So if you don't know the coat, probably you have a little bit hard time to understand the context. If you know what the meaning of a coat, or you can say jacket, all right? Now you got, okay, when we go outside, ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ coat ਪਾਉਣੀ ਹੈ, right? So we wear the coat. Now, you didn't know the meaning of pala lagda, all right? So in that situation, and it's mean just cool, like it's mean cold, right? Pala means cold. Pala is similar to thund. It's same thing, all right? So when I say January ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਠੰਡ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ it's so cold in Punjab in January all right when we go out we like we just freeze or we just feel so cold all right that's mean ਪਾਲਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਤਾਂਹੀਓ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਟ ਪਾਉਣਾ that's why we wear the coat or jacket all right that's what it means so if you get the context like first line was like it was so cold in Punjab in January a second line, you know, when we go outside, we feel something, but you don't know what does it mean. All right. The next line is we have to wear the coat. All right. Now you can guess, like from the context, I talked about the coat in January when we go out. So what do we wear? We will wear the jacket, and what we feel like a lagda, pal lagda. So it's gonna be if you guess, it's most likely the cold. Like we feel the cold, right? That's all you can guess. So probably you're not going to guess on first time. Some of people are going to guess from the first time. But if you listen this kind of stuff again and again, you can guess it even without looking on the dictionary. That's why I told you or tells you all the time, you need to listen Punjabi as much as possible. When you're working in the kitchen, just listen something. When you're driving, just listen something. Listen. That's the key. That's the key for understanding. If you want to understand Punjabi people, all right? The second key is if you want to communicate, you also need to speak, all right? Speak with whatever. Maybe speak with Google Assistant, ChatGPT, whatever. If it works, talk to people. Or you need to talk. So what I can tell you, maybe if you can, like 80% listening, maybe 20% speaking is fine. You don't need to speak that much, but you need to listen a lot. You need more input than output. If you have less input, you can't produce, right? You need more input. So basically, if you have 1 hour for study, every day. Spend 50 minutes or listening something, maybe 10 minutes or speaking. Alright, that's how it is. So, if you enjoy this podcast, please show your support by contributing. This helps me to know that you are getting the value from it and want to see more. I would really appreciate it. You can support this podcast through PayPal and Patreon. Links are in the description. And if you are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give it to 5 stars. It would help this podcast to reach out to the more people. And another thing, if you are struggling to understand Punjabi pronouns, then check out my free ebook about Punjabi pronouns. Link is in the description. At the end, I hope you enjoy the lesson. I'll be back with another lesson in another day.